When PSP was launched in 2005 in the UK, I was convinced it would be the only multimedia device I would ever need. Games, music, movies, internet, photos. It was all I wanted in one device. And so I pre-ordered my PSP with 8 games. The store was so pleased that they threw in a free copy of White Noise on UMD as a reward. But of all the launch games, I was most excited for F1 Grand Prix. The screenshots looked mega. But when release day came and I loaded it up, I was so disappointed. I played about one race and sold it. And that's that. Thanks for watching. Lolzors, no, there is more to this story. 20 years later, I was looking through my PSP games and I found an old promo copy of the game, version 1.0, which I assume is the same as the version in the shops, and it runs on a retail PSP. After 20 years, I loaded it up again and look at this. That is the entire Monaco harbour rendered in 3D at 60 frames a second. Look at it again. Sure, the crowd is drawn in and then pops out of existence, but the fact it's rendering them at all across the entire harbour on a 20-year-old handheld that wasn't even running at its maximum processor speed due to battery concerns is incredible. The reason nobody realised how great the game engine was on release is simple. We'd never seen PSP games before, so we just assumed that this was the basic level of quality that the console was capable of. Only it isn't, as the otherwise incredible F1 from Studio Liverpool shows. Textures in that game that came out a year later are washed out. There's loads of pop-in, and the frame rate is really finicky. But this F1 Grand Prix was developed by Traveller's Tales. Yes, the studio best known for the Lego franchise. Traveller's Tales did also develop Sonic R back on the Saturn, as well as WRC on PSP, so this wasn't their first rodeo with racing games. But my goodness, what a game engine. Look at the long start-finish section at Sao Paulo. Look how solid the scenery is, and the mega draw distance you can see all the way to the end of the straight. The texture quality is through the roof, and the car models are brilliantly detailed. They look amazing. But the marvels don't stop there. It's actually got varied weather, and even to some extent dynamic weather too, with rain falling and stopping at different points during the race. With no benchmark except Ridge Racer that also ran at 60 frames a second and looked near PS2 quality, the visuals were not championed at all to my memory. Everybody must have assumed it was normal for PSP games to look like this, but it really wasn't. Instead, I remember thinking in 2005, it looks nice, but it's rubbish. And that is the biggest problem. First impressions of this game are that the AI and control are dreadful. As soon as you start, cars start veering wildly across the track, smashing into you and causing you damage. This is so bad. Having played through 3 full championships, I have never finished a race without taking damage. The action is best described as catastrophic. In its defense, the game never suggests it's a serious sim. You start off with automatic braking on by default, and there's never even an option for manual gears. We really are firmly in arcade territory in many respects, especially with the rally-style corner icons at the top of the screen telling you which way to go. The auto-braking is so overbearing it brings your speed right down in microseconds, but worse still is the control. Even using the analog nub on the PSP, you can't steer progressively at will. Pushing a direction steers the car with increasing severity over time, and you can't change the speed of that curve. So after a second or so, the car will always be on full lock, doesn't matter how far you're pushing the stick. This means you have to play it like an old PS1 title, nudging left and right most of the time, and actually works best with the D-pad buttons. Needless to say, it takes a lot of getting used to, and as a result, you never get a truly smooth line through the turns, because the game is always trying to turn you harder as you steer through them. It's rubbish. While there is damage modelling, that's restricted to front and rear wing damage, and even crashes that should end your race just see you respawn back on the road. It's definitely arcadey. The game actually asks you to play through the entire championship on easy difficulty if you want to unlock normal difficulty. But that means if you don't want to finish the entire championship, you won't get to see the pit stops and the weather. you need to finish in the top 3 to get that, and I can imagine some reviewers never got that far, so missed the advanced features and longer races. Normal difficulty actually gives you 5-lap races instead of 3-lap stints, and then you need to do the whole championship again to unlock hard mode, and that features 10-lap races. You can't race any longer than 10 laps, though you do need to pit twice in those 10 laps due to fuel levels that you can't control. So there is very little depth to the career mode, with only 3 presets for your car's handling, predictably offering low acceleration and high top speed, the opposite, or a balance of the two. But even when you're on the max speed setting, you'll still see some cars rocket past you inexplicably on the straight, and every handling level lets you take hairpins at ridiculously high speeds. Indeed, it's left me so bemused. I actually feel sorry for whomever made this magnificent game engine, because the game itself running on that engine is so monumentally flaky. All the hard work making the championship circuits, presumably from the ground up just for this game, and rendering these beautiful cars in several levels of detailed 3D, texturing it all and making the pit crew look so stupendously good and fully animated, is all undone as soon as you try to play it. It's really bad. But having given up on it so quickly 20 years ago, playing through the whole game now has made me realise it does have a lot more value than it first appears. Only Gran Turismo on PSP arguably has this level of graphical fidelity, and I wish I had a better method of capturing from real hardware, because this composite footage really doesn't do it justice. It's an incredibly good-looking game. In fact, I go so far as to say it's one of the most technically accomplished games I've ever seen, rivaling Melbourne House's PS2 Racer Grand Prix Challenge in terms of sheer technical prowess. But for whatever reason, F1 the following year was given to Studio Liverpool. This engine was wasted. Traveller's Tales could have just got the hang of the AI and made the game control properly with true analog input, given us manual gears and a deeper championship mode, and this could have been one of the greatest handheld racers of all time. Instead, I don't blame myself for selling it immediately. I would probably still do the same now if I wasn't so intrigued by this amazing game engine. So I'd like to know, what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to reply to as many as I can. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I do a weekly Let's Play of classic Sega games in my Sega Sundays playlist, so do check that out. Or you can see a video recommended just for you there below it. You can also learn how to be better at all racing games with my tips video up there. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Cheers.